Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review of The Last of Us, Episode 7, Left Behind. Let's talk a little bit about what this episode's about. And there will be no spoilers. If there are spoilers, I'll give you plenty of warning. So in this episode, after the events of Episode 6, we dive back and take a look at Ellie's past. Which is really interesting. I think it's a really good place to look back and explore more of who Ellie was before all the events of everything that we're following. This one was directed by Liza Johnson, written by Neil Druckmann and Craig Mason, stars Pedro Pascal as Joel, Bella Ramsey as Ellie, and we introduce Storm Reed as Riley, who we'll talk about in a minute. So, as I mentioned, in this one, we go back and take a look at Ellie before everything that we're experiencing in the last few episodes. I really enjoy this because I want to know more about all these characters, and via that we learn more about the world. Right? We know that Ellie was in this like kind of like military program, at like to train to kind of be part of Fedra and kind of serve that. But we also know that she left all that and now she's trying to get to the Fireflies. So it's really interesting to kind of experience and go back and relive some of those moments, what that world was like for her, and even just living in the military barracks, I guess you could call them. And then meeting a friend, which we really don't know a lot of people that Ellie has known prior to all this, right? That she would consider a friend, because once we met her with the Firefly, she was more of a captive, and then now she's more of a mission. And even with Joel, that relationship started off as more of a just as an errand, as opposed to like friends or family, or even somebody that they would care about. Now, obviously, that's changed throughout the last few episodes, but it's really cool to see in this one somebody that Ellie already cares about prior to all this. We we also get to see some really cool settings. Specifically, if you saw the preview, and this is really not a spoiler, we get to go to the mall, which in a world that has been abandoned for 20 years because of everything that's going on, it's really kind of cool to see how a place like that would have evolved throughout the years. Like, what do the stores look like? And we see some signs of, like, looting, because of course that happened. And just the set design was fantastic. If you listen to the after show, the little snippet that they talk about, they talk a lot about how much they worked on this mall, all the little details of, like, first of all, what stores would have been around at the time, making sure that they look authentic, making sure that they look like something that somebody that was living in that time would have experienced, and then also how, after years of being abandoned, what that would entail. Um, but this episode also gives us a lot to think about when it comes to the theme of loss. I think that Ellie, up until this point, and this is something that's discussed at the after show part of it, by the creators, like, Ellie hasn't really experienced loss, and now she's on the verge of maybe losing Joel because of the injury from the last episode. So we don't know how she would deal with something like that. So it's really interesting to see just the evolution of the character and how that goes, from one point to the other. So I really enjoy this. There's definitely a lot more. There's some. It's really interesting to see how a young person, or really kids, would live in this world, what they kind of have to go through, the how different the structure in society is, and how, even though growing up, their mission is really just like, their paths are really carved out for them. They don't have a lot of options growing up. You either join Fedra and become, like, you get assigned a task in this new society, or you escape and become a Firefly, and then your life is just kind of being on the run. But in this one, it's fun because we get to see them just be kids and just, like, be teenagers that would be doing all these kind of crazy things. But of course, with some of that stuff, there come consequences, and as we know, this is a place where the big incident happened to Ellie. So we get to experience all that stuff all at once. So, a really good episode. It was just really well done, really well transitioned to the characters. Great performances by everyone around. Specifically, Bella Ramsey and Storm Reed really carried the majority of this episode. So very glad to see it. I'm very excited to see what happens forward. There's really, like I said, not a lot to discuss as far as spoilers, but I will get into spoilers because there's one cool thing I want to point out. Um, we see them. So spoilers if you haven't seen the episode. Thanks for watching. But my favorite part was a little Easter egg. That's not really an Easter egg, but we get to see the Ellie and Riley go to an arcade, and they play Mortal Kombat 2, which is like probably one of the best arcades that's ever been in any arcade. So that was really cool, and it was an extended sequence. Like they were playing for a while. That we got to see a few fatalities, which is really cool as a Mortal Kombat fan. So that was really neat. Just I love all the additional touches that like the additional effort that the showrunners go through to make sure that the show feels real, lived in, and then just kind of throw. I'm sure they're as somebody that worked in video games, Neil Druckmann, I'm sure he's a fan of Mortal Kombat, or at least knows that that game is part of like a big part of history in video games. So that was really cool. Yeah, and there's so many cool scenes like the scene with the carousel, just them experiencing that stuff. And it was like they were both trying to discover and figure out their relationship as well, which is really neat. Like awkward teenagers just like kind of fumbling through this hangout, which is like, is it a date, is it not a date, like who knows. I think a lot of people go through that awkwardness in their lives when they don't really know where they stand with somebody else. So it was just really fun to see, and then like I said, it was really well performed. So another fantastic episode. This show continues to just really knock it out of the park at every corner. And I can't wait to see what we do in the next few episodes. I'll be listening to the podcast as well to see if there's any cool bits. So stay tuned for any YouTube shorts that come out of that. So let me know what you thought about this episode down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.